Previously on Aoi Shiro.
彼女は琥珀さん。昔からの剣の守り手で剣を封じているうちの塔のスーパーバイザーってところかな。
Kohaku, the guardian of the sword.
見た目ちっちゃいけどかなりの年上だから気をつけなさいよね。右は聞こえておるぞ。おお、怖っ。
Kohaku-sen probably felt something similar to the hard-to-describe feeling I occasionally had when dealing with Momoko. I was the sword, something that could slay anything. No, I...
生贄になった証拠を救うつもりでクロークルーを切りに来たのに、こんな結果になるとは皮肉なものだ。剣の担い手は死ぬまで、魂の一辺までをも食われるまで、混沌に蝕まれ苦しみ抜くことになる。自我の一辺が消えるまで。なら翔ちゃんはまだ。翔ちゃん、これで一緒に。
And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken and welcome back to my Let's Play of Aoi Shiro. I'm pretty confident still that I unlocked most of Kaya's endings in the previous route. So I'm going to continue my game plan from the last episode and continue working my way up the flowchart, starting from this point, where we first witnessed Kaya's fight with Kohaku. I'm going to choose the different options that are present here on this part of the flowchart, work my way down to this scene, see whatever's present here, and then continue working my way up until eventually, hopefully, I will get everything cleared in this very episode. Although, once again, as always, whether or not that'll actually end up going according to plan, only time will tell. But I'm feeling optimistic today that it will. So, without further ado, I believe we should start by observing.
さあ、どうするケンキ?
The Tsubaki's spirit mercilessly slung her sword at Natsune-san, who was unarmed after dropping her sword. From the right, from the left, diagonally. At the outset, Natsune-san was just barely able to dodge, but she couldn't maintain that for long. In the dark night, a crimson flower bloomed. The sword which swung around without restraint caught Natsune-san's upper arm, resulting in a shallow slash. It wasn't a life-threatening injury, but there was no doubt that the blood flowing from it robbed Natsune-san of stamina. Well, she could start by poking out your other eye.
お主が改心せんのならば仕方あるまい。わしとてこちらのやり方の方が楽だ。その妄念ごと叩き切ってやろう。まだ抜きたくはなかったけど仕方がない。
We're gonna see you get possessed by the sword again, huh? I really wouldn't recommend it. For a moment, I lost track of my train of thought. A low, guttural, painful moan like that of a beast emanated from Natsune-san's mouth.
お主、貴様抜いたか。剣を抜きよったか。クロークルーを切るためならば、私は鬼にでも何にでもなろう。剣に魂魄を食らわれてもか。クロークルーを切った後ならば、私の魂などいくらでもくれてやろう。これでは語るだけ無駄か。しかし久方ぶりの剣の正気、さすがにわしにも応えるな。しかもこやつ、わしと違って加減せずに引き出しておる。それではお主も持たぬだろうに。切る。 やれてやるか。消える。
Natsune-san, who wasn't Natsune-san. Natsune-san, who truly deserved to be called the sword demon that Migiwa had used. Holy fuck. Did you actually deliver a lethal blow to Kohaku? By all appearances, it would seem so. I don't like this. Natsune-san, whose sword speed had already surpassed human limits, further increased her speed as she swung the sword. Well, this sucks. Tsubaki's spirit was cut with a downward diagonal cut, not at her extremities, but at her body. With a painful moan, she collapsed. The Tsubaki spirit didn't turn into crimson flowers and disappear. As if she were a living person, a fresh pool of blood started to gather under her fallen body. She's an Oni, right? It's just a flesh wound. I'm sure she'll be fine. Give her, like, what, 10 minutes of good old R&R and she'll be okay? By the time I recovered my senses, I saw that Natsune-san was already far off in the distance.
Natsune-san, matte!
And there's our first ending. There's one little bit on the flowchart right here that didn't show up. I thought that's selecting the... So I think what I need to do is I'm going to need to select an option or two somewhere back a ways from this spot in order to get this thing to show up. So, next.
Skip. 進行上、カーソルを合わせると章台が表示され。
I believe I need to select back here. At those words, I instinctively pulled my body back. Something within my body, that voice, kept stirring in reaction. That voice right now was... To confirm what had happened when I dodged to the side, I turned to look at where I'd just been moments earlier. I didn't think I'd see history repeat this soon. Natsune-san was there with the sword unsheathed. The tip of the unsheathed sword that Natsune-san held was buried in the body of the Sekiganki. A smothering red smell wafted up. The Sekiganki pulled herself away from the sword and tried to get some distance, but she stumbled and fell. The Sekiganki, who had toppled over, looked up at me from a lower position with her red right eye as she drew her last breaths. I also wanted to run. That's what I wanted to do. However, whether it was because of the miasma of the sword, or because I was looking at Natsune-san's face, my feet wouldn't move. Dear cousin, I am your dear cousin. She's down. Something that had the shape of Natsune-san, but wasn't Natsune-san, came and attacked me. Natsune-san was already gone. And I was already done for. Those were the only things that were certain. That sword is a bitch. I was worried about Migiwa, who still hadn't floated up, and let go of Natsune-san's hand. In order to return back along the road that I had already traveled past, I hurriedly twisted my body around. I saw Natsune-san get knocked away. The huge dark fist of the huge Oni smashed Natsume-san's body into the ground. Between the fist and the rocks, some sort of stain appeared and flowed into the ocean. Based on the reflection of the moonlight, it was definitely some sort of liquid. Probably Kool-Aid. But if that were the case, where was Natsume-san?
やれやれ。このわしから逃げられると思ったか。
Her voice rang out in my direction. From the top of the unusually shaped rocks of the stepping stones, she looked down at me. The one-eyed Oni laughed while a fang peeked out. The one-eyed Oni narrowed her red eye as she howled in laughter. With a mocking laugh, the one-eyed Oni commanded the huge Oni accompanying her.
鬼若、ひねり潰せ。
And without being able to do anything, Is crushing me really necessary? I'm practically a mosquito compared to you. I sank down to the same location as Natsume-san. Damn mosquito squisher. It'd be better if I step away. Okay, I just want to make sure I chose the right one. It was an embrace I hadn't had in 8 years. I wanted to stay that way a little longer, but if it was going to pain Natsume-san, I forced myself to let go and took one step back, facing Natsume-san. Voice still filled with pain, Natsume-san used a shaky arm to point to the cliffs next to the shoreline.
向こうに昔も休んだちょうどいい大きさの洞窟があるからそこ先行って休んでって夏姉さん本当に大丈夫なの大丈夫だから見えないとこに
I was saddened by the fact that seeing me tormented Natsume-san this much. I was afraid that after not seeing her for 8 years, Natsume-san would once again vanish from my sight. I wondered if this was a dream that I hadn't vanished yet.
じゃあ先に行ってるから絶対に来てよ大丈夫今度は約束守るわ
I think you mean keep my promise?
ここかしら
I sort of remembered, and I sort of didn't. My memory from 8 years ago was fleeting. Still, this place blocked the wind and the air in here made me feel like it was a safe place to stay. I lay down, my consciousness and energy leaving my body, as if they had been sucked away.
Natsume-san, 何?
I felt a strong gaze directed my way, which caused me to wake up. Natsume-san, who had been constantly staring at me, looked down and averted her gaze.
何でも別に何でもないの
If you're worried about me vanishing from your sight if you were to look away, I don't think you got nothing to worry about.
そうええ翔ちゃん大丈夫
I was fine. I didn't know how much time had passed, but perhaps due to sleeping, my head and body had recovered a bit.
夏姉さんこそ
I wondered how long she had stayed in pain out there, before finally coming here.
大丈夫私はもう大丈夫よ
I had no choice but to believe what Natsume-san said. Nap time.
続き見れるかな
Afterwards, we'd probably head to the island. What I wanted to know was what happened on the island.
翔ちゃんごめんなさい
You don't have to apologize.
ごめんね翔ちゃん守れなくてごめんなさい死して五穀の鬼とならんじゃないけれど叶うならあなたを助けるためになら翔ちゃんごめんなさいさようなら翔ちゃんなっちゃん
That was awfully demonic sounding, coming from you. Maybe you really are an Oni after all.
朝もう朝なんだ
それじゃあ鈴木さんお世話になりました
Oh, we're leaving?
進行上カーソルを合わせると章台が表示される
I think we're leaving.
お世話になりました
うん
ナミちゃん元気でね
They exchanged farewell hugs.
お嬢様ナミちゃんのこと本当によろしくお願いします
おう任されよ
あれミギーさんは
Fishing. She's probably fishing.
部屋にはいなかったから寝てるってわけじゃないと思うけど
She was...
また釣りですか今日帰るって知ってるくせにねえオサ先輩オサ先輩やっぱりいざ帰るとなると名残惜しくってね
The salty wind from the ocean made the sal trees rustle. The chilly wind from the ocean robbed my skin of its drowsiness and vestiges of regret from my dream. The wind, made of pure water and pure salt, too quickly washed away and purified the reminders of my dream.
ではまた来年祭りの時期を外してくればいいのではオサ先輩はまだ部長のはずですしそうね
Well, I won't lie, I certainly wouldn't mind a second vacation here. It is a rather nice location. But next year...
いや冬なんかでもいいですよ夏と違って暑くなさそうなのがいいです
Okay, actually, I would like to see what this place is like during the winter too. And so we left the temple gate and head towards the bus that would take us away from this sea.
それではお嬢さん方達者での
Expected more than this, to tell you the truth. This is a very interesting little conundrum I'm faced with right now.
進行状態
Because on
カ
the
ーソル
screen
を合わせる
here,
と章台が表示されるわよ
because on the screen here, I'm presented with two options, and yet looking at the flowchart, whoops, went too far on that one. I got three different options, different branches I could go down. There's this one right down here. Go over left, right, you dummy. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. There's this middle one right here, and finally there's this one right here on the right. Now, I'm going to assume that this particular branch right here would bring me to Kohaku's route or something. But what I want to know is the reason that third option not showing up here is because I didn't make the exact right sequence of choices beforehand? And so it's only limiting to these two options? Or is there some kind of weird glitch in the matrix going on here? I'm going to assume it's the former. Because, well, if it's the latter, then I would have to sit here questioning my perception of reality as we know it, and frankly, that would not be good for my mental health right now. So,
進行状態の把握は大事よね
I chose to go to the Oni stepping stones, so this time we're going to go to the South Forest. I decided to go to that place during my free time. To the south forest where the Tokusaki no Tsubaki bloomed. I'll go to the place where I met that person last night. If that doesn't work, then I'll go even further to make sure. Of the true nature of the mysterious feeling which had filled my heart. Of the true nature of the inexplicable tears that poured from my eyes. Wait a minute, why don't I double check?
進行上カーソルを合わせると章題が表示されるわよ。
Okay, you know what? Backtrack. I don't think I'm gonna talk to you this time. I was interested in Urashima. I was also interested in the solitary road called the Oni Stepping Stones that led to Urashima. Because I had washed up on shore 8 years ago in Urashima after an accident at sea. I don't have any memories of that time. That's why I can't say anything. Well, that was anticlimactic.
進行上カーソルを合わせると章題が表示されるわよ。
Oh, so this just careens me onto Migiwa's route from the looks of it? Interesting. Who is this steely-eyed lady who looks suspiciously like me?
誰よこれ。
I predicted that the conversation wasn't going to be good, so I answered in the negative. Even though I knew fully well who the person in the photo was. Not Chan. Not Zuni-san. I had really loved her, and even now I admired her.
なんだ、長って剣道部の部長の割にはものを知らないのね。
Migiwa cleared the picture from her cell phone as she said that with a mocking smile. That was the person that I should know best. Since I denied knowing her, I didn't have the right to say anything.
彼女の名前は成海かや。その昔、警察剣道ではちょっと名の知れてた成海東映の一人娘であり、彼女自身、女子剣道選手権の優勝者でもある。ま、剣道界ではかなりのサラブレッドってところかしら。
そんなのずいぶん昔の話じゃない。
8年前のことだしね。今から8年前の夏、成海かやは休暇中の事故で帰らぬ人となっている。死体も見つからなかったそうよ。旅行先での台風直撃という状況だけに、7年待たずに彼女は奇跡に入っている。
翔ちゃん、スキップよりも進行カーソルを合わせると章題が表示されるわよ。
I'm not gonna ask this time, so let's see where this leads us. It might be better not to ask, since right now, other people besides Migo were here, so she might not be able to answer my questions.
翔子先輩、どうしました？いや、なんでもないわよ。まったく。進行上カーソルを合わせると章題が表示されるわよ。
Did I just veer onto Migawa's route again? Looks like it. Pass.
さすがにそこまでして無理に泳ぐことないんじゃない？
For some reason, the person who let out a discontented sigh at my refusal was not Momoko, but Yasumi.
休み？あ、
You wanted to see me in a swimsuit, didn't you? It's okay. You can be honest. Perhaps she was embarrassed by that uncharacteristic tone of voice because she blushed and looked down.
最初からそういう目的なら普通に水着持ってきてたかもしれないけどね。
Or you could just simply want me to come along. I guess that's also a possibility. Swimsuits weren't that cheap either, so I didn't think we should go out of our way to buy one. Well, it depends on where you shop. Since we were having camp at a faraway place, it's not like I didn't bring extra money though. Also, you gotta learn to take advantage of sales.
私以外の人はみんな水着持ってるんでしょ？だったらあなたたちだけで泳ぎに行けばいいじゃない。せっかく海に来たのに、長先輩付き合い悪いですよ。
I know, she's such a killjoy.
でも今晩の食事とかありますんで、とりあえず買い物に行ってきますね。
Yasumi firmly tugged on Momoko's sleeve and gave a little smile. And then...
何この水着!
And you got the swimsuit anyway. The group who went to go shopping in the morning came back with a swimsuit. And also, this design. Were they telling me to wear this? I say, going by their faces, yes. Yes, they are. But what would they think about a captain who would be so unsociable not to go along with this? Putting aside personal matters, this training camp was also to increase my communication with the team, so I couldn't refuse. And that's how I ended up swimming in the ocean. It's like Destiny... It was like Destiny was like, fuck you, Shoko, you're gonna get wet whether you want to or not. It's kind of funny how... It's kind of funny how fate just comes to conspire against you from time to time.
進行上、カーソルを合わせると章台が表示されるわよ。
Although, going by this, maybe this should have been my first clue that I'd end up going to the damn ocean anyway. So I guess it's my own fault for not paying attention. Anywho, we got some more choices to make from the looks of it. It was an illusion.
昔は昔。進行上、カーソルを合わせると章台が表示されるわよ。
Okay, we're gonna go right along down that way. Past is the past, the present is the present. Yes, that was an illusion shown to me by the summer sea. Natsunisen was already someone who would never return.
よし。翔子さん、何がよしなんですか？怪しろ？
The sand crunched beneath her feet as she walked across it, and she greeted me with an easygoing... Wait a minute, did I see this before? No.
一人で一息つきました？まあね。
She seemed to notice I had probably been thinking about something, and didn't call out before she approached.
そろそろスイカ割りをしようって、桃子ちゃんたちが探してますよ。そうね。
Let me first pound the watermelon with all my might to try and relieve some stress.
はい。では行きましょうか。
That poor watermelon. It's done nothing to deserve this. Why must you people be so fucking cruel? Aoi Shiro dragged me to where Momoko and the others were preparing to split the watermelon. There were a number of watermelons. Dear God, it's a slaughter. By the time Aoi Shiro and I arrived, they'd already started deciding the order through Rochambeau. Up until now, the number of successes remained 0. It was now my turn.
では首相、指名をお願いします。
The only reason I was last was because I had lost all my rock, paper, scissors matches, but you suck. Well, that's one way of putting it.
いいけど、指示が嘘混じりって難しくない？
Although, to be fair, it is pretty much a luck-based game for the most part, so... Half the shouts of encouragement contained misleading information. If you knew who was giving false info a priori, you could ignore those, but that was aside after the contestant was blindfolded. Because of that, the battle to split the watermelon had passed the vanguard and lasted all the way to the end where it was my turn. Nami also seemed to have high expectations for me.
ここで私が失敗したら、 この場はスイカはお預けです。夕食のデザートに繰り越されることになるでしょう。
まあそれならそれでいいんだけど。
では獲物をどうぞ。
ってこれ不毛打ちじゃない。
さすがに市内ではスイカは割れないと思いまして。
You probably could if you swung hard enough.
おしょう泣くわよ。
Actually, wait. Do I want to see him cry? Would he shed manly tears?
大丈夫ですよ。おしょうさんならスイカ割りとかに改名してくれるかもしれません。
You shouldn't expect too much of his kindness, because sooner or later reality will end up betraying you.
まったく
Just saying.
それじゃ一発で終わらせてあげるわ。
Whether or not it was because my vision was blocked, my senses focused on sound and touch. What just happened? Because someone suddenly touched my bare skin. It caused me to let out a weird, uncharacteristic yelp. My cheeks immediately became warm, but... Was it you, Yasumi, who touched me? Because of the blindfold, I couldn't tell if I was red or not.
今のは誰？
私です。相沢康美です。
You know, I was expecting it to be Momoko.
いや、名前は言わなくても声でわかるから。
さてそれはどうですかね。もしかしたら私秋田桃子が匠の技でザワッチのモノマネしたのかもしれませんよ。
Yeah, I don't think that Yasumi would have covered for you here, so I'm more inclined to believe her over you.
その先輩のこと回そうと。
ごめん、急に触られたから驚いた。
Well, there was the promise of a split watermelon. From where I was currently standing, if I walked straight and swung down, it'd break it in two. I'd break it in two. Well, probably. Probably not, going by your poor luck with rock, paper, scissors thus far. As in, zero luck.
では、回しますね。
I was spun around. Spin, 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 spin. Yeah, I'm not gonna read all those. I was spun around like how one winds a clock. Perhaps their voices were restrained. It was hard to hear what Aoi Shiro or Yasumi were saying, perhaps because. Of course, I couldn't hear what Nami was saying.
ちなみに、じゃんけんで負けた一人が正しい指示を出します。
あとの3人は？
適当なことしか言いません。
Translation, they're going to misdirect me. When I've been on the side of the people giving directions, I've been able to easily tell who gave correct answers. Well, here's my suggestion to you. If the person whose advice you follow ends up being incorrect, whack him with your magic stick in retaliation. That way, the liars would be more hesitant to lie to you. And if they know what's good for them, they'll all tell you the correct information. 3 choices. Interesting. When I've been on the side of people... Okay, so... I believe I lost to... Aoi Sensei. Momoko's instincts and luck when it comes to victory were rather high. Therefore, she was rather strong when it comes to her Shambo too. So I might not have any chance of winning against her. I couldn't determine whether Aoi Sensei was the type to lose to Aoi Shiro and the others, but... Even then, there was a high probability that Momoko might have directed our teacher to give the correct instructions.
Yes.
Anyways, I concentrated on Aoi Sensei's voice. The other sounds faded away.
幼いさん、もっと左。
Don't think I'll spare you just because you're my teacher. if you give me wrong instructions. Okay, here we
もう
go.
少し左。
You gotta be kidding me.
進行状態。カーソルを合わせると章台が表示されるわよ。
Oh, wait a minute. So, do these extra choices just not branch off into a whole bunch of other stuff? Or is there gonna be... Oh, God. There better not be a specific ending I'll have to follow. I'll have to get by following a very specific set of choices with this particular minigame, because that is going to be a freaking pain in the ass to figure out. Fuck. Left.
もう少し左。
Left.
いいんじゃないかしら。
Here.
ここだ。
There was a definite feeling of impact against Kumoichi as I swung down. I knew I could trust you, teacher. I knew you wouldn't lead me astray, despite my threats.
マサ先輩お見事です。綺麗に割れたわね。
Well, perhaps you could say it was as expected of me. The salty wind blowing from the sea enhanced the sweetness of the delicious watermelon, which everyone had a fun time eating. And, well...
あら、雨？
And now Zeus has shown up and is all like, I think you all could use some extra rain with that watermelon. Gotta wash it down with something.
進行状。カーソルを合わせると章台が表示されるわよ。
Guess I better work my way back. I'm gonna follow Aoi Sensei's advice, except not really. Though I had gone past the height to where the watermelon should be, I didn't feel any impact against the wooden sword. And a moment later, I felt the impact of hitting sand. I wonder if it's possible for me to actually hit one of these people.
残念。外れましたね。きっとわざとですよ。みんながもう一回楽しめるように。
You saw right through me. No, it was supposed to be the final one. I was supposed to be the final one. Your turn, Pipsqueak. Anyways, I had lost to Momoko at Rochambeau. In other words, I would try believing that one of the people I lost to would give me correct instructions. What a foolish idea. Though I had bad luck when it came to picking things. Anyways, I concentrated on Momoko's voice. The other sounds faded away.
もっと左です。左。
Should I just move left once or 4 times?
進行状態。カーソルを合わせると章台が表示されるわよ。
I forget, was it 3 times or 4 times I moved to the left before hitting the watermelon when I was following Sensei's advice? If it's only 2, then I know that she's lying.
もうちょっと左です。もうちょっと左です。
I'm gonna assume it's 3.
お、そっちです。
Alright. Though I had gone past the height of where the watermelon should be, I didn't feel any impact against the wooden sword. And a moment later, I felt the impact of hitting sand.
よ、進行状。カーソルを合わせると章台が表示されるわよ。
Well, saw that coming. Oh, what? No commentary from Momoko about how she deceived me? Foo, huh? Okay, now I know she's fucking with me. Okay, I got it that time. At least I now know it's definitely possible to hit the watermelon, even if I'm not following Sensei's instructions. So I need to pay attention to what other people say. So, last one. Myself.
私、嘘の指示には惑わされない。用語進行上、カーソルを合わせると、正代が
Well, regardless of whether I win or lose, I mean... Yeah, it doesn't really matter because we've already seen every variation at this point of the scenes.
私は海を背中に立っていて、スイカはちょうど正面にあった。そして、この場で回されたけど、スイカまでの距離は変わっていない。自然は嘘をつかないし、スイカは足を生やして逃げ出したりはしないわよ。
It's simple. If I hear the sound of the waves coming from behind me, all I have to do is close the distance and swing down. I concentrate on the sound of the waves. Oh, I see. I got to listen. Coming from behind me. I wonder, does this game actually have surround sound? Like true surround sound? Let's go right. Okay, I didn't notice a change in where the waves are coming from. Right again. I want to say it's behind me right now, but let me go right one more time. Okay, I do think it's behind me. Fuck it, let's try it right here. Ah. Okay, this is interesting. I go left once and then I get this untranslated option. Why not? Let's try it. Well, I guess it was just simply a mistranslation. I think I got it.
あら、
Yep, I did.
進行上、カーソルを合わせると正代が表示されるわよ。
Guess all I got left to do now is see if maybe selecting the right options here will get me to that new scene now. So we're gonna go to the Oni Stepping Stones.
夏姉さん、本当に来るのかしら。よ、進行。カーソルを合わせると正代が表示されるわよ。私の目的は。
Okay, I think I got it.
進行状態。カーソルを合わせると正。
Looks like trusting myself and splitting that watermelon was the right chop. The right chop. The right chop. Well, it was the right chop, but it was the right choice. Excuse me. Natsu-Nisan's goal was Natsu-Nisan had stolen the sword from Nigiwa's place.
四天の者が鬼切り部となる以前から代々守り続けてきた。八千代の昔に形を成した神さえ葬る神代の呪物。
Exactly what was Natsu-Nisan planning to do with a sword that could even bury a god? How did Natsune-san think to obtain such a thing? Why? The sound of Natsune-san taking in a breath drew back my attention. Natsune-san's sword was at the feet of the Tsubaki spirit. What in the world happened while I'd been pondering? Right now, Natsune-san was unarmed, while her opponent was wielding a longsword. Oh.
進行上カーソルを合わせると正代が
Oh,
表
it
示
just
され
loops
るわよ
back here?
スキップよりも
That's disappointing. It looks to me like I filled every single spot on Kaya's list here. From here to here. So, mission accomplished. Still got this spot right here to fill out, which I think is still that one ending that I was told about that I'm still missing on Migawa's route. And then I guess there's also Nami's good end, which I think goes right here. Well, either way, I mean, hey, I'm in a good mood. I wasn't expecting to actually get this all. I wasn't actually expecting to get this all cleared in just one sitting. So, yay! So now that we're well and truly done with Kaya from the looks of things, I think it's time that we finally give Kohaku some attention. So, I think what I need to do is I need to follow, at least for the first few options at least, the same options I took to get myself on Kaya's route. So, Deja Vu,
スキップよ
and Garden.
じゃあスキップ
Okay, going by the log here, you definitely are talking about Kohaku here, so I think this option here is what I want to choose because if I want to keep looking for her, so we're going to choose keep looking. Let's get
Skip.
I'm not sure if choosing to talk about Kohaku's clothes or pretending like I didn't run into her would really impact anything or not. But just as an experiment, I'm just going to see if maybe selecting this will help anything.
スキップ
Suspicious person is the one in South Forest. I think I want this one for sure.
進行上カーソルを合わせると
I've already seen this, so let's
Skip.
skip. Get this out of the way.
しやさスキップ
Oh, there we go.
進行
Now
状
our
態の
third
把握は
option
大事
here, at this
カ
point,
ーソ
the
ルを合わ
blood
せ
charge
る
is
と
now shown
正代
up.
が表示されるわよ
But I think this time, I want to select the South Forest.
よ進行上カーソルを合わせると
Yep.
正代が表示されるわよ
Here we go. I decided to go to that place during my free time. To the South Forest where the Tokusaki no Tsubaki bloomed. I'll go to the place where I met that person last night. If that doesn't work, then I'll go even further to make sure. Of the true nature of the mysterious feeling which had filled my heart. Of the true nature of the inexplicable tears that poured from my eyes. Those didn't belong to me, but it was surely something very important to me. Won't argue with you there. Summer, 8 years ago, I had an accident in the rough seas during Kuro-sama's festival, and was miraculously saved.
スキップ
Now, our third option here, at this point, the blood charge is now shown up. 進行上カーソルを合わせると正代が表示されるわよ Here we go. I decided to go to that place during my free time. To the South Forest where the Tokusaki no Tsubaki bloomed. And it was miraculously saved. It's said that a one-eyed, white-haired Omiyoji spread the faith about Kurosama, so there should be some sort of connection. That's why I think I'll go there. To the Sao Forest, where the Tokosaki no Tsubaki blooms. You're giving me that evil eye again. Well, not evil eye as in the one that glows, but... well, the normal kind of evil eye. After the meal, I said goodbye to Aoi-sensei and Yasumi, who went shopping, and then headed towards the Sao Forest. Momoko also remained behind in order to prepare for tonight and left the menu entirely up to Yasumi. So strange things did happen. I thought of this and that as I proceeded to the Sao Forest. Today was the second day of the training camp. Of course, beneath the sunny sky, it was our first free time. It was also my first time entering the Sao Forest during the day. Decorated with fully blooming flowers, the Sao Forest was impressive. The green canopy above me thinned the sunlight, and the vegetation filtered the salty air, changing it to a refreshing wind. It'd be a nice place to rest in the afternoon, with the sound of the leaves rubbing against each other and the white flowers, but it was different from the mysterious forest from last night, and I wasn't entirely confident of myself.
確かこの辺だったはず。
Since it was hard to see through the forest, there might be someone else here, but I didn't see anyone else right now.
やっぱりいないか。幻でも見たのか。
If the spirit was born from the Tokosaki no Tsubaki and used the moon for sustenance, it wouldn't appear in broad daylight, though. If that were the case, there'd be no point to me wandering around the forest during the day. Let's go further. If that's actually, we've seen her in daylight, so we know that theory is bull. So, I'd say let's just keep looking. We might run into her. Still, I thought about proceeding further. That's what I decided to do. I was thinking that if I couldn't find that person, I could at least lay my eyes on Tokosaki no Tsubaki. I went into the Sao Forest. I continued past the white flowers and green arches that decorated the place. I reached that place at the end of the path I walked on. A place filled with brilliant sunlight. As if avoiding that place, the sao trees surround the area from a little distance away. There was only one tree over there.
これが床先の。
Among the white sao trees, there was only one drop of fresh red mixed in. The fresh look of the flowers reminded me of a crimson eye floating among white skin. The flowers which were scattered by the wind crashed against me. I wonder how long I stayed here pondering. I wonder if I had been captivated by something not human. I am pretty sure that you are.
椿のせいか。
I looked at the Tokosaki no Tsubaki. Let's go with deja vu. I want to see what this brings up. I had a strange feeling deja vu. Well, we did get that one little flashback in Kaya's route that you had from apparently a past life. At least that's what I'm assuming. So maybe if I select it deja vu here, we'll see it here. Different from the bright sunlight of spring, the strong sunlight in the south shone on those red flowers. The brilliant red color that dazzled my eyes.
この感じ。忘れているけど、覚えている。
My heart started to beat faster. I should have forgotten, but this felt different from the memory brought up by seeing that person. Felt like it was mine. I had seen those red flowers before. these.
花の色が赤いのよ。命を宿す血の色の赤。
I knew about these red flowers. My heart violently throbbed, and a large amount of blood rushed to my head. What I saw in front of me was stained in white and red. As my head felt heavier, my feet felt lighter. It was as if my center of balance was off, causing me to sway. The back of my eyes throbbed painfully, and without thinking, I covered my eye with my hand. Perhaps a strong light through the red tsubaki caused a hallucination, because a gritty red noise ran through my head. A picture floated up from within the noise. A red, gritty picture emerged. A young me was crying, while someone was petting my head. Even distorted by the gritty noise, I could tell who that was. The person petting my head was Natsune-san. Scatter. The red image crumpled once again. The red tsubaki were blossoming.
私、ここに。
I've come here before.
夏姉さん。
Summer. 8 years ago, I had visited Unasaka with Natsune-san and had come here. I had felt a stronger wind than what was blowing now and back then. The smell of the tide had been stronger. A few meters past the sal trees, beyond the Tokusaki no Tsubaki, the trees cleared to the open sky, and below that was the ocean. It was the cliff that faced the direction of Hiroshima. I could look over the ocean where 8 years ago I miraculously survived, and where Natsune-san was lost. Reefs dotted up from the ocean between Unasaka and Hiroshima. They were the only stepping stones. The salty wind coming from the direction of Hiroshima blew in my face. This time, something other than pain pierced my chest, and I absent-mindedly stood there, tears brimming.
オサ先輩、何やってるんですか？
The sudden voice coming from behind surprised me.
オサ先輩？
You have a rather interesting habit of following me around places. Care to explain why?
なんだ、桃子か。脅かさないでよ。
脅してなんかいませんよ。
You existed.
こんな人気のない場所で急に声をかけられたなら普通は驚くと思うんだけど。
昼の昼までそうでしたら夜になったら阿鼻教官ですね。
Momoko snickered and gave a disturbing smile.
盛大に驚くのは夜になるまで慎んでもらいたいところですね。
夜？
Was something happening at night?
それで桃子こそそんな荷物抱えて何やってるの？
Oh, you're here preparing for the challenge. She had a variety of large and small items. The most noticeable one was a large trowel like those used to shovel snow. Was she going to dig for buried treasure or something?
それは今夜のお楽しみです。
今夜？今夜って何かあったっけ？
予定がないからねじ込むわけです。夏合宿の定番といったらやっぱりあれでしょう。夜の肝試し。
Well, I guess you could say it's it's customary. We also had one at the training camp last year.
それで仕掛けを作っていたと。
Well, at least I'm aware of the traps that you've laid here, if nothing else. So I got a leg up on everybody else on that front. When I returned to Shoshinji, Yasumi had already returned and was relaxing with Aoi Shiro and the others in the room.
翔子さん、おかえりなさい。
ただいま。
あ、翔子先輩、おかえりなさい。
Hello, Nami. From the shadows of Yasumi, the shadow of a small person of pure white face peeked out. Her light-colored hair fluttered. It was the girl Yasumi had found at Unosaka Beach at about the same time I met the Tsukubaki spirit in the South Forest. When I first saw her sleeping face, though her eyes, mouth, and nose looked different, I thought her complexion resembled it. But with her gaze, hazy blue eyes open, which were the color of the ocean, she gave a completely different impression.
休み、その子、目を覚ましたの？
はいちょっと前に目を覚ましたんですよ。
So the girl had woken up after they had returned from their hasty shopping trip and had been wandering around. Different from Yasumi's slightly tired look, Aoi Shiro seemed to be having a lot of fun. She was smiling as she was stroking the long hair of the girl who was sticking close to Yasumi.
懐かれてるわね。
はい。
She looked like an innocent little child, but from her height she seemed to be about 10 to 12 years old. If a child like that kept sticking close to Yasumi, who lacked stamina, she would soon become completely exhausted. We need someone with more stamina that the child can leech from. Get Momoko in here.
第一発見者だから？
It was what happened in nature when a chick recognizes the first thing it sees as its parent. I think it was called imprinting. You would be correct. Mother and child. Yasumi had also slightly wavy hair, and her large, round, winsome eyes and facial features also resembled that girl's. I wonder why. She resembled her more than that person who reminded me of Red Tsubaki. I knew it would be tough on Yasumi, but she'd have to act as the child's mother until her guardian was found. She didn't seem to possess anything that could be used to identify herself, but now that she's woken up...
名前とかは分かった？
Do you...
それが
Yasumi exchanged glances with Aoi Shiro and frowned with a troubled look on her face.
そういえばその子。
はい。全然喋ってくれないんです。
Her name and her origin were all unknown. The girl was still full of mysteries, except that she was awake now. We decided to give her the temporary name of Nami. Where
ところで
am I on
休
the
み。
flowchart?
用語辞典進行上カーソルを合わせると章題が表示されるわよ。
Quite a little ways. Oh, looks like I'm going through an unsealed branch. It's from the looks of it.
もうすっかり良くなりました。
Well, she went shopping and made dinner, so it seemed her condition in the morning hadn't slowed her down, but...
というわけで肉も食べましたし、ザワッチも回復したようですので、予定通り結婚します。肝試しを行い、姫先輩が見たという幽霊の実在を確かめるのです。
A group of people clapped after Momoko's magnificent-sounding speech. Well, I guess it was okay to have the test of courage. Flickering and swaying. The tiny flames lighting up the darkness were caught by drafts and flickered. I can't hear this particular piece of background music anymore without thinking of the countless times I've gotten that one particular bad end on Yasumi's route where her spiritual double thingy ate me alive. I would say I'm traumatized by this music now, but that really wouldn't be accurate. I think. I don't know, I don't care. The flickering candlelight caused the shadows of the people sitting in a circle to also sway. The light in the place was provided by a number of candles placed on the floor. The long shadows were able to block the light coming from a lower place, and the tip of the light melted into darkness. Located in a wide area where the candlelight couldn't reach the edges, it wasn't one of our rooms nor the grand hall, but it was the main temple of Shoshinji, where the statue of the principal image, Bishamonten, looked down with an overwhelming gaze. According to Momoko, it was a suitable place to tell ghost stories as a prelude to the upcoming tests of courage. You know, I wonder if we're going to get a different ghost story this time, since we're not just zooming right on through this whole thing. We weren't telling stories in the Haiku monogatari format, and didn't blow the candles out after each story. Instead, we took turns.
じゃあ次は桜井さんの番ね。私、自信がないんですけど。
Go for it. She first protested that she wasn't that good at telling scary tales. Some people who were really good at telling such tales also started with a protest like that, but in Aoi Shiro's case, it was true.
あやしろこういうの得意じゃないからね。
もしかして怖いの苦手ですか？苦手というか、得意じゃないです。
Though she truly looked the type to be weak at it, she was able to maintain her warrior's pride like that and avoid embarrassment.
うちのザワッチは見た目に反してそっち方面意外と強かったりしますよ。結構怖い本とかも読んだりするんで、映画みたいに過激な映像がついたりするとびっくりしちゃってダメですけど。
See enough horror movies like I have, you get desensitized to most of it after a while, although there are still certain types of maiming and other types of gratuitous violence that will still make me squirm, even to this day. And I'm not going to say what that is. I see. It's not like I didn't understand that myself. A slow mental scare was quite different than one from a movie, where the sound and light caused a physical reaction of fear.
ホラーはいいけど、スプラッタはダメって感じ？
ちなみに私はどっちもどんとこい。
Okay then. I think I can probably throw a good scary movie or two I'd be very interested to see in regards to how you'd handle them.
では桃子ちゃん、行きますよ。
At Aoi Shiro's declaration that she was going to start, everyone shut their mouths. The spacious main temple had many dark areas and ate up any echoes, leaving an ominous feeling of silence. And then, Aoi Shiro began to speak in a faltering tone. How did I get flattering out of that?
今日の明け方のことなんですけど、変な気配を感じて目が覚めたんです。
We asked for a scary story, Aoi Shiro, not a documentary on recent events. She had protested that she was not good at this, but even then, it was off to a disappointing start.
あやしろ、それもう聞いたから。
あ、やっぱりダメですか？何かこの先脚色は？
I could probably do a halfway decent job of dramatizing it.
ありません。
Probably.
友人の友人ネタじゃなくて実録系はありだと思うんだけど。
脚色抜きで同じ話の繰り返しはエンターテインメント性に欠けると思うんですよね。
Then why don't you dramatize it, Pipsqueak? It was common in the acting world to repeat a story if it was for comic relief, though.
他 他にそういう体験はないんですか？霊感とかあまりない方だと思うので。
Excuse me. In the end, the vice captain defaulted. You bring shame to me. You okay, Momoko? Migiwa, Momoko, and Aoi Sensei attempted to work hard to recover from Aoi Shiro's miss. I see. She was just faltering something fierce. While walking around everyone with twisted pieces of paper in her hands to draw lots, Momoko didn't stop her mouth or hands.
開始前に皆さんにいいことを教えてあげましょう。
She shot the hand that wasn't holding the paper lots straight into the air.
何その変な指。
She didn't make a peace sign for pointer and middle finger, but instead raised her pointer and pinky finger. Maybe she's trying to imitate Spider-Man and shoot web?
そういえばももちゃん、写真撮るときとかいつもそれだよね。これはメロイックサインと言いまして、魔除けのサインなんですよ。つまりこれをしていれば安全。
In Italy, it seemed to be used as a sign to ward off evil. Interesting. So, in Italy, Spider-Man is constantly shooting web as a means to ward off evil. In Momoko's version, she also stuck out her thumb, but according to the ancient custom in Japan, only 2 fingers were used.
ちなみにこの人差し指と小指は悪魔の角とか牛の角を表しているそうですよ。
Actually, wait, no. I think Spider-Man always has his thumb out as well, doesn't he? So, never mind.
円がちょっとかバリアみたいなもの？
そう言われるとありがたみが。
Momoko was crestfallen. Also, it was a little weird for a person in civilized society to make a sign to ward off evil when getting a picture taken. When pictures were first invented, some thought that taking one would steal your soul, though. Yeah, I forgot. People actually did think that for a while, didn't they? Perhaps someone who didn't even know that the Tokugawa shogunate had ended would also be surprised by the taking of pictures.
次は
It seemed to be my turn to draw a lot from the ones in Momoko's hand. In the hand Momoko was gripping, there were only a few paper strings left. There's a saying that fortune remains in the leftovers, but...
まあまあ、とりあえず引いてください。さて。
Oh, I get to pick? Does it matter which one I pick here, though, honestly? Fuck. This one. I decided to pick that one over there. I drew one of the paper strings gripped in Momoko's hand.
さて。
I unwound the twisted piece of paper and confirmed the number written on the end. Oh wait, I remember now. These things determine which order I go in, so I think they do matter. We go in order and pair up with the person who had the same number. So who'd I get?
翔子さんとでしたか。
Oh, I get to go with you this time? Sweet. Aoi Shiro was the one who picked the same number as me.
木刀を持ってくれるのが翔子さんなら心強いですね。
そんな買いかぶらないでよ。
You really are, though. As a person who was often praised, I want to correct that and drive home the point.
少々腕が立ったって気遅れしたら実力出せないって綾代が一番よく知ってるでしょ。
耳が痛いです。
綾代、練習なら強いのにね。
Aoi Shiro was diligent in practicing the basics and was strong in practice, but because she was timid, she had never won a match.
皆さん、ペアのどちらかは携帯電話持ってますよね。
It seems that while we were talking, the other lots were drawn and the pairs had been decided.
ペア以外の人の番号短縮登録してあります？何かあった時にすぐにつなげる準備は OK？ 定額プランに入ってる人は実況しながらでも構いませんよ。むしろわざと怖がりまくって後続車を牽制しまくるのもありだと思います。ありでしょう。
You're all a bunch of rich girls, right? So wouldn't most of you be on unlimited plans? And then the test of courage filled with Momoko's traps began. The two of us, Aoi Shiro and I, walked through the forest at night. The white flowers had fallen and acted like a carpet on the ground as the two of us went through the South Forest. Aoi Shiro was... Before entering the forest, we had walked around the gravestones near the outside of the temple. She had been quite scared, but she seemed to be rather relaxed after entering the forest.
あやしろ。はい？落ち着いた？
I asked that to Aoi Shiro, who looked to have her normal, gentle demeanor again.
はい。
I stared at the corpses of the white southflowers that had not yet fallen into the ground as they reflected the moonlight. For a second, I thought she was just gonna. When I read I stared at the corpses. I was like, oh God, who killed who? Like there was actual corpses lying around, but no. No, it's just dead trees, dead tree flowers.
ちょっと安心しました。
It felt like it had been a long time since the two of us had a relaxing conversation like this. We were on the same team. I was the captain and she was the vice captain, so we had a lot to talk about, but when we had met for the first time,
確か。
it had been the season when the peach blossoms were flowering, but still a little too early for the sakura. But to Aoi Shiro and me, it was a splendid time where the sakura were blossoming. Since that was when we received notification about being accepted to schools.
はい。
The former captain and donor of the prizes for the test of courage would say, is this like, oh hell, shit, I turn on auto, I guess. Would say, is this like the vow in the peach garden? It wasn't like that, but I'd strongly tied our fates together since afterwards. We went to the same school and joined the same team.
ですよね。確かにね。
It seems Aoi Shiro had really admired dorm life at Seiju and wanted to be roommates.
それにしても。あら？
Something seemed to catch Aoi Shiro's attention since she looked up.
あれでしょうか。
At the end of the path, under the pale moonlight, a red tsubaki casting purple shadows reflected in my eye.
これは綺麗なものですね。
Standing next to each other, we gazed at the tsubaki for a while.
さて、そろそろ戻りましょうか。はい。では、行きましょうか。
Taking a sweet as hell can of coffee from the box left at the root of the tree, we slowly headed back, chatting along the way. Wow, nothing happened. I was expecting something to happen. According to rumors going around by cell phone, some saw a large monkey or two red spirits, traps like that, but yep, the water monkeys are on the move. Somehow tonight's test of courage concluded safely, is what I thought, but there seemed to be a girl who dropped her wallet along the mountain path. Go get it!
私が行ってみてくるわ。
Not you, the person who dropped the wallet. We were divided down the middle about what to do. Some groups were scared and wanted to wait until morning light, but the school ID was important, and there was also paper currency and point cards. It'd be annoying if the morning dew got them wet. It seemed she didn't stray from the path, so I'd do a round trip, and if I didn't find it, we'd search in the morning.
私も行きましょうか。発案者ですし。
Well, I would say strength in numbers, so yes?
いいわ。何かの際に役立つ木刀は一本きりしかないわけだし。
God damn it, Shoko. If it were Momoko, she probably wouldn't slow me down, though. And also, it was a good time right now. Perhaps, if I went alone, that person might appear. Is what I was also thinking. I went into the Sao forest. My right hand held the flashlight, while my left hand held Kumoichi as I quickly went through the Sao forest. I had passed by yesterday, and I had just passed by right now. I had been on this path a number of times. It was a road I already knew about, so I didn't have any feeling of déjà vu. As I lit up the path at my feet with the flashlight and prioritized avoiding Momoko's traps, I looked for the dropped wallet.
まったく。
Dropping a wallet in a situation like this might be more due to carelessness than to fear. Why would you even have your wallet out to begin with? No, perhaps because she dropped her wallet because she had been scared and was surprised by Momoko's traps. The wallet I was searching for was white in color. I thought it was a color that'd be easier to find at night than black or brown, but all the safflowers are kind of making it hard to find, right? Safflowers were beneath my feet. Yep. There were many flowers, as if they wanted to bury the ground. Different from the courtyard that we had swept clean here in the South Forest, no one tended it and the flowers piled up. What a ridiculously contrived coincidence, in all due honesty. One of the members just so happened to drop a bright white wallet that forces me to come right back here, and it's lost among all these bright white safflowers, forcing me to what would otherwise be a pretty extend a search for what would otherwise be a pretty easy to find object, even though we're right smack on the path. I know something's gonna happen. It was all leading up to whatever the hell is waiting for me at the end of this. The white flowers that had covered the forest floor had probably been on the branches until today or yesterday afternoon. Since so many flowers had blossomed, that many flowers would have to fall down. The color of the flowers from the twin sal trees indicated that the prosperous must decay. At the same time when I felt a deep feeling of the inevitability of change. It was the same time when I realized that finding a white wallet buried among the white flowers would be no easy task. The trees of the forest rustled. Probably the water monkeys. I wondered if it was one of Momoko's traps. Though I didn't remember stepping on a string that was attached to a noisemaker. Yep. There was something within the dark space from where I heard the sound.
誰？
Beneath the shadows of the far-off sal trees, there was something like the shape of a person. In the dark, the height of the shadow looked to be smaller than the height of my waist. Not even Nami was that short. It looked something like a wild monkey, in that general class of things, but more than a monkey, it looked like the head of that humanoid shadow had two protrusions sticking out which resembled the horns of an oni. What looked like horns were actually long, sharp ears. It looked like a person, like a monkey, and also like a mixture of those two things. Whether it was due to the reflection from the flashlight, or whether they shined on their own, those large eyes glowed red. Like moths drawn to a flame, they approached me. Like jumping fleas, they hopped my way. Pulse. It screeched and thrust its arm. You might want to duck. I threw my body to his side and somehow managed to evade, but... Well, I guess my advice would have ended up getting you hit, since it was going for a vertical attack. The arm I saw as it passed me was... The slender wrist befitted its size, but it had large shoulder muscles, and its palm was like a glove, with long, sharp claws. Like I thought, it wasn't something human. The shadow, which landed with a thud, moved like a simian creature as it corrected itself and faced me. The light shined off the string of drool dripping down from its fangs.
人にあらざる鬼どもが跋扈するこの時間。食らわれるのが嫌ならば、弱歩きが控えるがよいぞ。
Were these the Oni that person had been talking about? Whether or not it was because they believed in no questions asked, it seemed that words wouldn't reach them.
やるしかないか。
Well, there is always the option to flee, but you probably would have a better chance of surviving if you did just fight them off. I held Kumoichi in both hands. The flashlight had dropped to the ground, pointed in the wrong direction. However, there was plenty of moonlight filtering through the gaps in the leaves, and it was enough for me to see my surroundings.
よし。
I was unexpectedly calm in a situation like this. That person. Deep in my heart, perhaps I wanted that inhuman person to recognize me. For an instant, there was a fleeting of contact transmitted through the wooden sword. When I connected, it felt heavy. It was different from the feeling of hitting armor with a bamboo sword. And then I passed through. The sooner that you kill all these things, the happier I'll be. I do not like listening to these things at all. The Oni turned into something like black mist and vanished into thin air. If it were a true living thing, I might not have been able to stand the spray of blood and vivid view of bone. The moment I defeated it, the weight of the wooden sword felt like it increased. They're awfully chatty this time, aren't they? I saw that a large amount of red lights were approaching me from within the dark forest. I was overwhelmed by superior numbers. I had enough power to take care of the first one, but if I were surrounded by more than two of them, I would definitely go down. No, even if they came one at a time, I would eventually reach my limit after fighting a number of them. Then, I had no choice but to run. The paths to retreat were closed off.
逃げ場が。
I was cornered at the open area where a red tsubaki blossomed. Tonight, the sal trees were fully blossoming. Perhaps hesitant of the flowers, they circled around me at a distance. Kaya, Kohaku, would one of you be willing to step in and save my poor buttocks? Perhaps the dark places created by leaves blocking the moonlight were jealous of the white and red flowers, as they imitated them.
囲まれた。
In the darkness, I was encircled by glittering red. Being pushed forward by the successive red lights behind, They moved forward towards the boundary between red and white. The circle shrunk. Now, those short oni with unnaturally large feet were close enough to be under the shadow of the Tokusaki.
こんなところで終わりになるかもしれないなんてね。
My shoulders rose as I continued breathing. My back was the only thing I didn't expose as I pressed up against the Tokusaki. My heart beat wildly, as if it were kicking me from within, creating a weird piercing sensation inside. For a moment, the red color that washed in front of my eyes was...
赤い
My vision darkened. It was due to these flower... Oh, you touched it. And so it transferred its power into you.
花が
The color of the flowers stained my vision. There was a time when the two of us had seen something like this.
なっちゃん
I wonder if these were Somatu, the circle of lanterns that one sees when one is about to die. Time froze. It seemed as if all movement had stopped. Memories that belonged to me turned into countless bubbles and floated up.
夏姉さん
Someone taller stood in front, protecting me. Memories that didn't belong to me turned into countless bubbles and floated up. Someone taller stood in front, protecting me. She wore dazzling red clothes. She swung the sword in her hand, cutting down the Oni one by one. Thank you for finally showing up. The piercing scream that reached my ears, which accompanied the sound of this picture, drew back my consciousness. The world became tinged with color. However, the picture hadn't changed much. I wondered if my consciousness was still in the boundary between dreams and reality. There was something different about this person than the one in the colorless memory. But I couldn't point out what it was.
夏姉さんとやらでなくて悪いが、まあ袖すり合うもなんとやらだ。夕べに結んだよしみゆえ、この場はわしが助けてやろう。
Thank you. Like dust in the wind, the monster shattered to pieces and returned to darkness. And though there had been that many Oni, at some point in time, not one of them remained, and they had all vanished.
どうした？何をほうけた面をしておる？
I sucked up a tree's life force. That's one reason.
椿のせい
わしを椿と樹木のせいと呼んだか。そのような呼ばれ方は初めてだな。
I'm glad you're amused. She didn't seem to be a Tsubaki spirit.
大概は天狗や化け物なんだがな。
The person who saved me from the ring of monsters. This time, she turned her blade towards me. Why are you doing this? I'm so happy to see you, too. I held up Kumaoichi in reflex, and connected with the longsword that the Tsubaki spirit swung.
ほう？今のはよく受けた。懐かしさが湧いて出てきおる。
Nostalgic for what exactly?
昔も夜な夜なこうして山で稽古をつけてやったものよ。
Training? Looking closely, I saw she had reversed the blade of her sword.
あやつもなんとか人並みには使えるようになったが、まあ人には向き不向きがある。あやつに比べればお主はよほど見込みがある。
あやつ
I wonder who that person was. Perhaps it was the person who could only stay protected behind this person's back. The me in that dream. That's exactly what I was thinking.
生き別れの兄弟だ。
Oh. Wow. Now there's an interesting idea. Maybe I'm the reincarnation of one of your sibling? A long-separated sibling. I wonder if the nostalgic presence I felt belonged to that sibling.
それで、どうする?
Well, now that I'm right here in front of you, I have no idea. The Tsubaki's spirit withdrew her sword and asked me.
お主が望むなら、きちんとした稽古をつけてやろう。
You're just gonna offer to train me? Just like that? Right out of nowhere? I mean, I'm not against the idea, but this just seems rather sudden. Apparently, the things that attacked me were a type of shikigami, wielded by an omiyuji and called moryu. Each one by itself wasn't that strong, so if I trained a bit, I'd be able to defeat it without much trouble, she said. The omiyuji we talked about was a one-eyed, white-haired person who transferred the faith in Kurosama to Hiroshima, but... Kurosama was the dragon god who sealed the mystic power of the Oni King, so he shouldn't be an enemy that would attack us. And the truth was, this person was also the one who had saved me. Within the memories that didn't belong to me, this person called a Tengu had also continually cut and cut and cut down those Oni. Well, it would be nice to actually grow into a more competent sword fighter for a change, so I accept your offer.
お願いします。
I wonder if you could also call this a connection formed while traveling. I think that might be an accurate description for what's going on here. It wouldn't be what Momoko called the ultimate Onitaji sword skills, but one wouldn't learn ordinary skills from a Tengu. And also, this person and I were...
よし。で、
I saw her grip her sword in a stance. Flustered, I yelped.
ちょっと待ってください。一度戻らないと仲間が。
The Tsubaki spirit thought for a moment before sheathing her longsword.
では、後で抜け出してこい。
Okay. She narrowed her open right eye in amusement.
逃げるなよ。
She laughed with a scary expression on her face. I might have made a mistake. I don't think so. You know what? I think this is a good enough spot to end as any, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. And I guess we can continue our, well, to be more accurately, begin our training with Kohaku in the next episode. I was not expecting anything like this to happen. Although, to tell you the truth, I don't know what exactly I was expecting to happen. But colored me very intrigued. And like I said, I think it'd be pretty nice here to actually practice my sword skills for once, because last I checked, I did come to this island to do just that along with everybody else, so I mean, yeah. And who knows? With better sword skills, maybe Shoko will actually have a chance to act cool later in a way that just outshines all the other times she was in all the other routes, you know? If that makes any sense. But as I'm very fond of saying, time will tell. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Aoi Shiro. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.